Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and as of this video's posting, we are on the brink of a brand new Godzilla era. So just to fill you all in, IDW has been printing Godzilla comics since the mid-2010s to varying degrees of quality. There have been masterpieces like the Half-Century War, Cataclysm, and Godzilla vs. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But there have also been duds like Oblivion, Rivals, and Godzilla vs. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2. In particular, IDW couldn't seem to get the ongoing series to work. Kingdom of Monsters had horrible art, no plot, unlikable characters, and a penchant for preachy politics, and the follow-up series was not much better. As such, they stuck mostly to limited series after a certain point. After the combined hits of Godzilla -1 and Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, IDW was given the green light to do something unprecedented. An ongoing comic book universe with unique interpretations of Godzilla and his kaiju kin. And our first glimpse into that universe arrived on Free Comic Book Day with the one-shot Godzilla: The New Heroes. This is our first look into what will be called the Kaisei era, containing one, I believe, original story and two previews for the two ongoing series that will accompany the main one. So, let's take a look inside and see if we should be excited or worried. The issue is split into three sections. First is a prequel scene for the mainline series, simply entitled Godzilla, which marks the second time that IDW has released an ongoing comic with that name. I'm sure that won't be confusing in the future. The second part is a short preview of Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone, and the third part is a preview of Starship Godzilla. These will be the first three ongoing titles of the Kaisei era. So let's go through them in order, shall we? In this segment, we are introduced to G-Force USA, the American division of a global kaiju fighting team. They're being debriefed on a recent Godzilla attack on the walled city of Manhattan, but that's not the interesting part. You see, during this attack, a superhuman teenager named Jason Braid confronted Godzilla directly, and he even managed to land a punch before the king knocked him out of the way. Despite the loss, that was impressive enough to get Jason recruited to G-Force, and he's confident that he'll be the one who finally kills Godzilla. So this is our entry point into the Kaisei era, and that means it is very exposition heavy. We get hints of world building, a brief rundown of how things work, and only the quickest of quick character introductions. How quick are we talking exactly? I mean, Speedy Gonzales would tell it to slow down. We meet 7 characters in total, but we don't really get to know much about them in just these few pages. The guy who dominates the proceedings is Commander Riviera, leader of G-Force USA. He's the one delivering all the exposition, so he does the most talking. We do get a brief sense of him being a gung-ho He-Man type who doesn't exercise any tact when dealing with foreign correspondents. Or at least that's how he comes across at the beginning. As mentioned, he has a lot to say, but it's mostly exposition, specifically narration of Godzilla's confrontation with Jason. I get the sense that he's kind of a Nick Fury type, but I'd need to actually see him doing something in a full story before I can really get a sense of who he is. And you said he's the guy with the most to do. That doesn't bode well for the rest. Yeah, the other characters have significantly less to do, but that doesn't mean we get nothing. Obviously, Jason is the logical next choice to examine since he's the most active of the human characters. We get a sense that he has a strong desire to protect people and stand up to bullies, since he socks out a kid who hurts other evacuees right before taking a stand against Godzilla. The final shot, however, clearly indicates him as having grown cocky since the event, and I'm assuming that his arc will involve him maturing past this. Or at least I hope that's his arc, because I'd rather not follow an unrepentant narcissist for the entirety of this series. Dr. Rumi Chiba, recently transferred from Japan, has the second greatest amount of dialogue, but that doesn't mean she has much to do. I get the impression that she's very straight-laced and has little tolerance for egotism, yet her dialogue, expressions, and body language suggest that she's got a sizable ego herself. Well, maybe. Like I said, she doesn't really do much here, so I can only surmise that this is the case. Jet Jaguar is part of the team, but he mostly just stands there in this issue. Well, actually, he does do one other thing. Quote lyrics from his 90s theme song, which is apparently the only thing he can say.
Why? Don't ask me, the comic doesn't say if it's a bug or a feature. But I will say that I'm very concerned about this choice.
If I had to guess, this was derived from the Michael Bay Transformers movies, where Bumblebee can only communicate through song samples. But Bumblebee could play more than one song. Jet only has the one, and unless it's an 8-minute track by Jim Steinman and Meatloaf, that means a very limited number of responses. Even in this book, his lyric samples are unprompted non sequiturs, so I can see this gag getting really old really fast. God willing, it gets changed at some point in the main series. Rounding out the human cast are Incense and Nuki, neither of whom have much to say here. From their body language, I can tell that Incense is very tough and aloof, while Nuki appears to be a shy wallflower. Oh, and Nuki is apparently Hispanic, since her only line of dialogue is in Spanish. The introductory text also feels the need to specify Incense as an influencer, though I'm not sure why that matters.
I fear it might lead to cringe down the line, but I sure hope I'm wrong. Last, but certainly not least, we have Godzilla himself.
Now, this book isn't exactly breaking new ground with the King of the Monsters. He does what you would expect him to do, rampage through a city. The most significant detail is the implication that he might actually fear Jason to a certain extent when they first meet, but how important that will be down the line is anyone's guess.
Okay, so plot and characterization are very light, and the art, well, it's okay.
Colors are kept very muted and earthy, and I have to say that the G-Force armor is hideous. Make no mistake, this is not the most pleasant color palette they could have chosen. That said, nothing stuck out to me as totally repulsive. Godzilla's new design certainly looks good in action. It's one of the bulkier versions, but the proportions seem fairly balanced. His new green energy is okay, but the fact that his skin is also green means the energy parts don't really pop like they could. Godzilla's heat ray colors usually contrast with his skin tone, but this one is in the same region of the color wheel. I don't know, it would probably work better if his skin was maybe even a bit darker green, but it's currently just too light to look right.
So there really isn't that much to go on here. There are some things that have me concerned, but overall, we just don't have enough information to know how the main Godzilla book will be. At least not yet. That being said, let us press on to the next preview.
In this segment, we get our first glimpse of a region in the Kaisei universe known as the Dead Zone, which is so overrun by mutations that it's been abandoned. It is not, however, empty. People are still in there, trying to eke out an existence and maybe find a way to escape. In the Dead Zone, there is a legendary figure known as the Wanderer, who is unique in that he is a human kaiju hybrid.
So taking into account that these are only the first few pages of the first issue, I can't really comment too much about the plot because it's literally just the beginning. That said, there are still some things I have to say.
For starters, these pages do an excellent job at introducing us to the Dead Zone itself. In only a few pages, I can tell exactly what kind of miserable wasteland this is. It's the ultimate slum, a hell on earth where nothing is pretty or pleasant, and it's exactly the sort of place someone stuck within would want to leave no matter what the cost.
I gotta be honest though, if not for the provided context, I never would have guessed that this was a Godzilla series. In fact, there are quite a few things about the aesthetic that make me wonder if it started off as an original idea that got incorporated into this new Godzilla project. Then again, like I said, it is still only the beginning, so who knows at this point.
As for the art, it's ugly, but intentionally so. The Dead Zone is not meant to look nice, nor are the people and creatures we find within, so having a deliberately nasty appearance makes sense. Will it prove to be too much? Only time will tell.
And so we move on to the third and final preview for a very different series.
Somewhere in the cosmos, 2 humans break into an alien structure to collect kaiju eggs, a job for which they'll need a quick escape. Lucky for them, they've got the best ride in the galaxy, Mechagodzilla.
And that's about all I can say in terms of plot. This one goes by even faster than the first part.
Heck, it goes by so fast we don't even learn the names of the 2 characters we follow the longest. I know the starship is Mechagodzilla purely thanks to familiarity, and I know the pilot's name is Ilsa because it comes up so much, but these 2? No idea. I'm not even sure what their personalities are since their primary goal is to just get away, which doesn't leave much room for chit-chat.
But again, I understand that these are only the first few pages of the issue, so I'm sure that the completed story will have more substance to get us hooked. Or at least I hope so.
The art for this one looks good overall. There's a very subtle manga influence in the character designs, and the colors are slightly brighter than the other 2 books, so the aesthetic looks nice. The vibe I'm getting from the art, the setting, and the scene itself reminds me of such classic anime as Cowboy Bebop and Outlaw Star, both of which are good influences to have, of course. Panels also have a lot happening within them, but they never feel overwhelming, and I hope that remains consistent as the book continues.
I suppose my only real concern would be Mechagodzilla himself.
The idea of him being used as a spaceship is interesting, and the way the Kiryu design is interpreted to that effect looks good so far. That said, though, I still wonder if there's a point to the ship being Mechagodzilla. Will it be significant, or is it just a design for its own sake? Or to put it another way, will Mechagodzilla do anything, or is he just a kaiju-shaped vehicle?
At this point, like I keep saying, I don't know. But I really do hope that Mechagodzilla serves more of a purpose than just getting the characters from Planet A to Planet X. Well, as previews go, I suppose Godzilla the New Heroes did the job of getting my attention. The impression I'm getting from you is that it's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. Pretty much yes. There are a few elements that could point to the Kaisei era spinning out of control in the long term, but only time will tell how that goes. I guess we'll find out in a couple of months. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni viewer signing off. Well, if nothing else, IDW still knocked it out of the park with the Here There Be Dragons comic. I really should film that video at some point.